Okay, guys, how we doing today? So, I feel pretty good about my economic commentary, so I'm going to keep up with it. So, here we go. This time it's about the other insane, crappy money spender that wants to be president. Why Elizabeth Warren's wealth tax won't work. Good old Pocahontas is at it again. Presidential candidate Elizabeth Warren wants the federal government to provide free health care for every American, child care for every parent, college for every student who wants it, and housing for low-income families. And she wants to pay for it all with a new tax on the richest of the rich. She calls it the Ultra-Millionaire tax. That sounds like something out of a bad comedy film. I'm not even kidding. Skimming a bit more off the top of the bank accounts of the ultra-wealthy might sound like a good deal for working and middle-class Americans, but the reality is that wealth taxes have been tried before and they haven't worked the way Warren promises. Warren wants to levy a 2% annual wealth tax on all households with a net worth of over $50 million and a 3% annual tax on those households with a net worth of more than $1 billion. Unlike an income tax or sales tax, both of which tax money when it moves around, a wealth tax draws on the same pot of money every year, making the pile smaller and smaller over time. It's essentially a tax on large savings, the money that investors and entrepreneurs rely on to start a new business. Go figure. Unlike Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Warren has never said that the very existence of billionaires is immoral. But her plan to tax 2 to 3% of their wealth on an annual basis is clearly motivated, at least in part, by a desire to reduce their wealth, and what she perceives as a power imbalance in our society. The economists who helped Warren design her plan have said that the idea is to make rich people less wealthy. If very rich people have to pay a percentage of their wealth in taxes each year, it makes it harder for them to maintain their wealth. Analyzing her plan, they wrote that one of its key motivations is to curb the growing concentration of wealth. So this isn't really about raising tax revenue, it's about using government power to make sure rich people have less. Still, Warren often pitches her plan as a way to raise money to pay for more government entitlements, and on that count it's likely to fall short. Yeah, not to mention the fact that this will even more severely limit our GDP growth, because we need the rich and wealthy to make investments into businesses and even to start businesses of their own. And they can't do that if the government keeps taking their money away. And no, they didn't take that money from the poor. I don't know why they keep saying that shit. They didn't. They earned every fucking penny of it through investments and hard work. They earned every penny. These government redistributionists are thieves and liars. Bernie Sanders, thief and a liar. Elizabeth Warren, thief and a liar. AOC, thief and a liar, and an idiot. Warren says her tax plan will raise $2.75 trillion over a 10-year period, but other countries have tried wealth taxes and found that they raise far less money than expected. In 1990, there were 12 OECD nations with wealth taxes similar to Warren's today. Only 4 remain. Though politicians like Senator Bernie Sanders praised Denmark and Sweden as paragons of democratic socialism that the U.S. should emulate, both nixed their wealth taxes in the 90s because too many rich citizens were just pulling their money out of the country. This capital flight resulted in lower rates of entrepreneurship and relative economic stagnation. So that's what happened. I was wondering what had happened to Sweden's GDP, saying that it basically hit 0% somewhere between the 70s and 90s. Shit. I take it back. They're all thief, liar, and idiot, all rolled into one. Not only did the wealth tax hurt the economy, but it didn't even raise the money it was supposed to. When Sweden eliminated its wealth tax, it had virtually no effect on government finances, according to the Financial Times. France tried a wealth tax for more than a decade, starting in 2000, that helped push an estimated 42,000 millionaires out of the country. They didn't pay the tax. They just left. Warren wants to get around the capital flight problem by taxing the money no matter where in the world it's located, and imposing a 40% exit tax on anyone in this category who wants to renounce his or her citizenship. Oh yeah, no, that's going to go over like a lead balloon. This part of the plan relies on hiring more IRS agents, partly to deal with the complexity of evaluating total individual wealth. But throwing more tax collectors at the problem isn't going to change the fact that the wealthy are very good at protecting their money, by offshoring it or putting it into unique, hard-to-value assets, like artwork. Austria is another country that used to have a wealth tax. One reason it dropped the tax was because the cost of enforcement was so high. Oh yes, and we'd probably end up seeing something very similar. Plus, any effort she would put into would eventually potentially amount to tyranny. Because, let's say, they start protecting their wealth, hiding it, sending it offshore, and so the IRS comes down on them hard and ends up actually committing straight-up crimes against its own people by going too far to the enforcement of her insane tax law. It'd be worse than when this country broke away from the British for the same reason, more or less. Severe heavy taxation without representation. Elizabeth Warren has the same madness as King George. Given its failure in other countries and her outlandish and vague proposals for addressing those failures, there's no compelling evidence that Warren's ultra-millionaire tax, again, sounds like something out of a bad comedy, will raise the revenue she claims. The wealth tax is beyond understood not as a targeted revenue raiser, but as a symbolic declaration of opposition to the existence of outsized wealth. Regardless of how it was obtained, Warren has described her tax as a tool for addressing inequality. But it's really just a presidential candidate's way of saying, I oppose the existence of very rich people. She could have just said it. Yeah, she could have. But if she'd come out with outright like that, you think it would have won her any friends? Of course not. I imagine many of the wealthy are actually in her pocket, so to speak. Her friends and allies in the wealthy community. I guarantee you, some of them are probably in her back pocket somehow. Some of them are sneaky and probably see that there's an opportunity, something to gain out of it. Either way, the thing is, there's no such thing as income inequality, okay? It's literally made up. It's something that people invented because they don't understand how economics work. Because when your nation's GDP increases, gross domestic product, that means more products become available for people to buy. The more things the dollar can buy, the more powerful it is, because it goes further. In short, while you may be receiving the same amount, the power of that amount has increased. What's a better deal in a war? What is often a better deal? Tons and tons of little weak guns, or run one really big gun? What has more power? A rifle or 5 handguns? The answer, of course, is the rifle. More ammo, more range, increased sight. And adding more handguns to the scenario doesn't make the handguns any more powerful. And it's the same with the economy. Income inequality is socialist bullshit. Deal with it.